Within that, women and younger women, they end up becoming the last to get whatever they get, whether it is food or health services or whatever. We have seen that if there is water scarcity, girls in high school don't get to go to school because there is too much of more work in the house itself. You have to fetch water, or maybe small things, but which lead to long-term adverse impact. And the basic impact is in you're putting in all your labor, you're putting in whatever you had in terms of investment for seeds or whatever, and you end up getting nothing.
Welcome to the section of Sustainability Karma. I'm your host Rajiv Tikku. Today we have a very special guest with us, Ashwini Kulkarni. She is the director of Pragati Abhiyan. She is also its founder trustee. Welcome, Ashwini Kulkarni, to the section of Sustainability Karma.
Thank you.
If we could begin with about your work at Pragati Abhiyan, what all do you do and what led you to set it up?
I have been in this field for more than 3 decades, and after working for first few years, like 10-15 years or something, or maybe more than that, what I realized is that mostly CSOs like ours, like NGOs, we get funds from somebody and then we go and do things in a particular village, whatever the developmental programs, whatever we are trying to do. But in that, I realized that there is a inherent limitation because it is all limited by the funds you can get. So in 2006, me with some of my friends, we set up Pragati Abhiyan. Basic or the core work is capacity building of the farmers and volunteers in the villages. So we have a very good team of village volunteers, community leaders who have now got all the strength that is required to understand the programs, understand how the panchayat system works, and see to it that their village gets their chunk of funds, functions, whatever is required. In addition to this, few years back, the communities that we work with are essentially tribal farmers in Nashik district, Thane district and Palghar district of Maharashtra, and they grow finger millet as one of the traditional crops. It is very culturally important for them. It's one of the basic grain in their plate, and they started discussing with us that we are losing out on the productivity of this. We are working a lot, we are putting in the same efforts, but we are getting very little out of it. What does need to be done? So since we were not into agriculture or agroecology, we reached out to other organizations which are already working on this, learned something from them, and in 2000 did a little survey to understand what the basic practices are and what farmers consider as the problems, and then we came up with a package of practices. We tried it with 100 farmers first, and then we realized that this is a feasible thing because it doesn't increase the labor cost or the labor days, and it doesn't increase input cost. So we adopted it across 7 blocks and 3 districts in 2019 with the help of Tribal Development Department. And so since then we are also working on this. We have also set up processing centers for the primary processing of finger millet. So this is essentially the kind of work we've been doing. One thing that I would like to just add is that we had all this International Year of Millet. So the thrust which was required on the marketing side, that how can we reach out to better markets, more markets which are ready to pay more, right? Which is well sounded and completely required. But nothing has been done on the side where will the supply come from? So we work on the demand side, which was required and needed to be done. But now when the demand starts coming in, and if we are not able to supply, then all the work that was done for demand will go and create a backlash. So these kind of things will not work. You have to work end to end, and for that the most challenging thing is various departments coming together and working together and creating policies and programs. That we'll have to wait for, I suppose.
I also understand that you work with Climate Rise. What is Climate Rise about and how does it help you really?
So Climate Rise has come into Pragati Abhiyan's life in the journey at a very important time. In the sense that we worked on finger millet, we worked on soil and water conservation, we worked on natural resource management, and to understand all this in the context of the challenges that we have because of the weather variability or the heat waves or the rainfall extremes, all these things are being experienced. Now we experience this, but how do we understand this in the context of what we are doing? So that is where Climate Rise came in, and Climate Rise helped us to discuss with other similar kind of organizations who are working not just in Maharashtra but across, and also helped us articulate and amplify our own work. So in that sense, Climate Rise has been very supportive.
Has been reported that 400 million people have been lifted out of poverty, multidimensional poverty. How is it reflecting at the ground level since you interact with people at the grassroots? What's your experience like?
We need to understand this in a very particular way. See, when the report came about the multidimensional poverty, it is more with the perspective of seeing whether basic infrastructure reach out to people or not. Those kind of things are being looked at, which is the output of whatever the processes have come in. And in that sense, they are okay. I mean, if you consider that as the matrix, then maybe so many have come out of poverty. But at the grassroots level, if we see hunger, if we see that there is a lot of clamoring for even daily wages, manual wages, that they get work. So you can see people coming into the city, standing at the Naka and looking for work and not getting work and going back. These are more stark instances which tell us about the poverty and the desperateness of farmers, especially tribal farmers.
Climate change is affecting all of us, but is it affecting poor people, marginal farmers more than the rest?
We need to understand this better. See, these are small and marginal farmers, and that is the majority of farmers in Maharashtra and India. They are rain-fed farmers, so they are completely dependent on monsoon to water for whatever production they can get in Kharif, because Kharif is the only season that they can work in, and they are resource poor. In the sense, they do not have the cattle that they require. They do not have the machinery that can be useful to them, which can reduce drudgery, which can increase productivity. So they lack the investment in terms of technology, in terms of actual capital, in terms of like money. So there are too many constraints, even if they want to do their best. And in such a scenario, when there are extremes like heavy rainfall and you end up losing your production of Kharif, which is your only source of farming or cultivation, then the danger is that the vulnerability will increase multifold. And within that, women and younger women, they end up becoming the last to get whatever they get, whether it is food or health services or whatever. We have seen that if there is water scarcity, girls in high school don't get to go to school because there is too much more work in the house itself. You have to fetch water, or maybe small things, but which lead to long-term adverse impact. And the basic impact is in you're putting in all your labor, you're putting in whatever you had in terms of investment for seeds or whatever, and you end up getting nothing. So either you have dry spells or you have heavy rainfall, and then the kind of soil and water availability you have is also precarious. Small and marginal farmers, rain-fed farmers, resource poor farmers, and women of those families are really at a very disadvantage in terms of the changes that we are seeing in weather. Like in Maharashtra, last 3 weeks it's been raining. What will happen to this Kharif now? We don't even have sun to make the soil get dry a little bit. So these are serious issues.
Rain-fed agriculture is another area of concern. So what can be done here?
Lots, actually. In the sense that basic is research. See, if you consider like we are in Nashik, look at grape, look at sugarcane. So much research has gone into this. Look at cotton. Yeah? But how much has research gone, even paddy to some extent. But how much has research gone into finger millet, if we really see? So what kind of public investment is coming into the crops which have shown that they are more climate resilient than the other crops? Like grape is more vulnerable, paddy is more vulnerable than finger millet or other millets, or this natural oil seeds, natural pulses other than the usual common pulses. So these things are important. Or the crop mix that our farmers do. They grow 6-7 crops in each Kharif season, which in a way is kind of their own insurance plan to see that at least 2 crops come, and even if they lose, something will be lost, something will be gained. So that is their own wisdom to decide on growing multiple crops so that something or the other is gained. So these kind of traditional practices which are helping vulnerable families to live through such difficult times. It could be the seeds that they have preserved, like the finger millet or the pearl millet or the Niger and these kind of seeds. More research needs to be done on this. Like we are trying to do participatory varietal trials to see if we can come up with a ragi variety. But that will take 6-7 years. Organization like ours is dependent on funds to get this. We've got funds for 2 years. We don't know if we don't get it for the next 5 years. What will happen to that experiment, to the whole research? So the point is, state universities, public investment in infrastructure also, like protective irrigation, such a basic thing during dry spells, or even to absorb the heavy rains that you get. If you have more water storage structures, if you can come up with divergent trenches and all, that will reduce the loss even if there are heavy rains, extreme rains. So these kind of things that are being tried out by organizations like ours or farmers collectives need to be studied, researched, and come up with technically correct, sound designs meant for that typology, meant for the geography. So study on climate resilient crops, and study like I just said that there are rains going on in Maharashtra right now. So what do I sow in June? The kind of seeds that I have been using for the same crop is not useful in this kind of a climate. If I am going to sow late, do I have the late varieties for each of these crops? No, that doesn't exist. We have restricted ourselves even in research to the set pattern, but the set pattern is not going to help. So all these things need to be done, and with the primary focus on small and marginal rainfed farmers.
What would be your recommendation for all stakeholders to enable climate resilient farming?
Let's look who are in the ecosystem as stakeholders. It's obviously the research institutes, whether it is private or public, organizations like ours who are trying some innovative models, and that is all that we can do, and media, and then the bureaucracy, of course, not just the policies but also the delivery system, and then students. See, these days we have a lot of students coming as interns. Can we sensitize them towards these issues that somebody will spend time in working on these later on, because that's the talent that is going into either academia or bureaucracy or whatever, right? So what can we do with the students who are in their graduation or before that? So that I think is an important stakeholder, but most important are the policies. And policies, by this I mean the legislature as well as the bureaucracy. Both have to really put their mind together, maybe have some consultations with organizations like ours who have worked across India in a very big way and in a very deep way, intensively. They have the data also. Farmer level data is available with so many organizations. Can we pull together and understand and see if we can come up with some good policy framework for both the resource poor farmers and for climate change? We need to think about these two.
CSO themselves play a bigger and better role in supporting marginal farmers.
Yes, because they can reach out. Public investment is again very important, and CSOs like us can do the experimentation, can do the training part, capacity building part, because we have the strength to reach out to farmers once and go and have chat with them, and we can get the feedback.
You were to sum up, what would be your wish list for marginal farmers?
First and foremost, I will say watershed. For each village, each farm, whatever the typology, it has to be done. Whatever the investment required, there's no alternative to that. Point 2 is create infrastructure like protective irrigation, or right now the livestock and all these agriculture and allied activities have a set schemes. They need to be made flexible. And third and fundamentally, I think, is we have been looking at agriculture and allied activities in silos. The unit is acre. So if we say paddy grown per acre, finger millet grown per acre, or livestock, we say how much meat or how much poultry birds and how much eggs. So there is a very simple 0-1 kind of equation there, which is not true. What we are talking about is landscape productivity. Take a landscape or a watershed and then see how much animals, how much of grains, how much of other food or cotton or whatever is being grown there. So what is being given and what is being absorbed from a landscape, and then see what needs to be done there. So let's not talk about a crop and a plot of land, but let's talk about landscape productivity. So that way we understand how collectively it impacts the like livestock or agroforestry or forest, like non-forest produce. So all these are so interconnected that if we look at landscape, that probably will be a more efficient way of understanding, and that approach will also give us the research questions that are required to make it more resource rich.
It was wonderful talking to you and getting a sense of how things are unfolding at the grassroots level.
Thank you, Rajiv. I enjoyed this.
Like this program. This program is also live streamed on All India Radio. We look forward to your feedback on our WhatsApp number 9818120554. For participation in this program, write to us at sustainability.karma@gmail.com. Looking forward to meet you again at the same time next week with a new episode and a new guest. Till then, goodbye from all of us. Sustainability Karma, a podcast series on sustainable development, sustainability and ESG.